let's talk a little bit about healing, but from a new perspective, from our energetic perspective. When we look at our new perceptions on how everything, including us, is energy, we begin to understand that what we call disease or dis-ease is imbalanced energy. When we harbor imbalanced energy in our outer layers of our energy bodies, such as third density mental or emotional patterns as an example, this eventually appears in our etheric body, the one closest to our physical body, as like a pitting or holes, and it eventually manifests as a physical disease or dis-ease. Our energetic hologram of the body moves outwards in, not the other way around. Your outer energy bodies are projecting the hologram of your physical body based on the patterning they contain, the Akashic record, and the life plan at any given moment. You are a hologram, and your energy first and foremost made into particle or matter format. You're projected from the antimatter field into form by your own innate higher intelligence, your own God self layers, your higher dimensional selves, making you in the same image, but according to the experience desired and required for this level of density's evolution and learning. So this is where your memory matrix gets dialed down and you only have access to a small portion of it. Now, I know that's a little mind-bending to comprehend, but we can stretch ourselves, and we have to stretch ourselves to be effective magicians. We need to have these larger perceptual understandings of ourselves as energetic beings. Let's learn some new energy terms that'll help us understand this idea of healing from an even more expanded and new perspective. Your higher dimensional parts are astoundingly miraculous, and they're made of antimatter or spirit. They have infinite creational power as an energetic being. They're very unlike the human you hear in matter or particle form in the third density state. Your higher multidimensional layers are energy in a perfective, unchanging, infinite state. There's no beginning or ending, and this part of you exists beyond time and space. Now, as a part of you, a small part of your larger monadic soul, as we'll call it, is projected down into 3D, and you enter a different system of reality as we've described 3D, and this system has what is called a closed loop energy system. When energy is in a closed loop system, it means it's decaying over time and within space from a lack of regenerative capacity. It's in a state of what's known as entropy, decay, decline. Think of the perfection of a soft, cuddly baby and the wrinkled state of a very old, aged person. And what we call aging is entropy occurring over time and space. When energy is in an open system, open energetic system, like in your higher dimensional layers, new energy is always available to create a sustaining effect on the system. In higher dimensional states, this part of your energetic being is actually not only receiving energy, but it is actually able to create its own energy indefinitely to sustain itself, and even enough energy to sustain other life forms that require external energy. A sun would be an example of this type of energy being. The sun just keeps on blazing out warmth and heat. How does it do that? How does it perpetually sustain itself? And yes, eventually suns die, but the span of time that it takes for that energetic being to cease, and yes, I'm going to say energetic being here, if you recall that I referred to our own energy field and you as being a sun, that this is the higher dimensional version of you, a sun. And so when you do see the suns in the sky, whether it's our sun, which is relatively small, or larger great central suns, these are actually energy beings that in the matter or form realm we see as a sun. In the antimatter realm, this is an energy being just like you. In an entropic 3D system, which is one that's in decline, and this is what we see in third density, the only way new energy comes into the system is from a consumption. Energy eats other energy to stay alive. Plants eat the sun. Animals eat the plants. We eat the animals and the plants, and then we feed off of each other too, energetically, as we discussed in energy imbalances previously. So even though we're always consuming energy, our bodies are in a state of decline, meaning they become less efficient over time. And as we experience the phenomenon of aging, we eventually die as an organism as our biological body can no longer sustain itself. This is entropy because the processing of energy becomes detrimental over time. And so even if new energy is taken in, it doesn't work anymore because the system's becoming less and less efficient. So even eating more energy really doesn't work because the system will become so incoherent over time that it's weakened and it breaks down. And it becomes energetically disorganized, incoherence, and it begins to function suboptimally so that it needs to eventually shut down, which is what we call death, because it can no longer even function. In higher density realms, 5D and beyond, organisms and energy systems are actually increasing in coherence and are becoming syntropic. And syntropic is the opposite of entropic. That means it's becoming more energized, more organized, more coherent. Syntropy is an increase in energy, increase in vitality, increase in organization and complexity that eventually reaches a threshold where it becomes this self-sustaining regenerative life force in a perfected state like a sun. This is the idea that has been in our ancient esoteric literature of physical immortality. And as a divine blueprint, this was indeed coded into humanity's potential. And there have been times on this planet when that potential was available to us. But over time, the species of humanity as consciousness and biology was greatly lowered in the fall of consciousness. So we fell into a third density state and we became entropic, just like everything else in a 3D environment. Just like everything else we see is changing and going through a death and rebirth cycle, we also aged and died. And over time, we developed a very powerful collective belief that aging and death were inevitable parts of our existence as human beings in bodies walking around. And that became our truth. So if you actually look back at the Old Testament, it has reports of Abraham or Noah or different patriarchs in those stories that were 600 plus years old. And that's actually, a very relatively short time span when you look at the potential of immortality. But it still shows a documentation that there was a time in our past humanity's history when humans were normally living much longer than we do now. We can attribute this to our collective memory matrix shutting down and forgetting itself. So over time, we adjusted and accepted the reality we see all around us as the truth. As we activate our rainbow bridge, we're increasing coherence in our own energetic system and beginning to reactivate the ability to become syntropic beings that are regenerative. You'll notice your health change as you do this work. Will it be perfect? And will you stop aging? Well, that's totally up to you and how far you want to go to recover your full memory matrix and put the energy, time, and focus into doing this repair and rejuvenation work. But I'll say that the potential does exist in your blueprint. Will it be fully activated in this lifetime? Again, is up to you. So we look at healing from this new idea that this certain body part or this organ or this system is broken or being attacked or diseased, is irreparably full of disease or tumors. And this is how our medical science tells us it is. This is what they say they are diagnosing us with a disease or a condition. And we could see the energetic pattern and see that what's actually happening is that that part of the body, whatever it may be, is in a state of energetic imbalance and entropy. So it's beginning to decay itself towards organism dissolution or death. If you think of fruit as an example and only one little part of the fruit has started to rot, that would be an example of what a disease is like in our body when that one part became contaminated and weakened and started the decay process. But over time, if you leave that organism in its state of imbalance, the entire fruit is going to rot. Well, that's aging. True healing really just seeks to reestablish syntropic resolution, meaning it creates an upwards energetic momentum to restore the imbalanced area or the system or the whole body into higher levels of syntropic harmony at an energetic level. Not only is it repairing the energetic structure, it's increasing the coherence into something more complex and harmonic. It's actually like rewinding linear time. The organism is restored to its highest perfective coherent format energetically. In a way, it's like age regression, but that's a time-space reference to linear time. You can see how even in our linear language, there's limitations in our ability to comprehend what's truly possible when we consider ourselves as pure energy. If there's a shift in consciousness sufficient to sustain the full restoration, we would see what we call spontaneous healing or recovery. And we've seen examples of this throughout history. And you can look at the stories of the Master Yeshua. How did he cure the sick all of a sudden and instantaneously? Well, he had his full Christic memory matrix activated, and he used it, commanded instantaneous restoration using his own energy codes to give these instructions and change the matter back to its original format. It was alchemy and light magic of its highest order, and he was a grand magi. In its highest potentials, it restores the original divine blueprint, and it becomes self-sustaining and regenerative, or immortal. This leads to astounding potentials in our world as more humans are restoring their memory matrix and remembering that the true potentials of our human divine design are well beyond what we've been trained and conditioned to believe. For our purposes, we want to understand that when we're working with energy, our goal is to use alchemy and light magic to increase syntropy and to rewind or reverse any chaotic entropy that exists within any energetic situation. You could call this transmutation as well. It's another word to describe it. Our ability to do this with success will, of course, depend on the level of syntropic energetic coherence that we ourselves have attained within our own energetic system. This is what true healing is. So any healer that you are working with or you observe working with others will only be able to heal another to the level and degree that they are holding that syntropic force of energy within themselves. So it's like a rewinding cosmic time process, but it's also totally outside of time. Time really is something in our 3D linear mind. We're infinite energy playing in time space and recovering its own codes of infinity. And it's such an interesting journey.